All right, welcome back, everybody. Time for us to go behind the headlines. And today I'm taking a look at a story that was forwarded to me by our own Herb Thrasher, because, of course, had to do with his home state of Alabama. And this was a story, let me see if I can get the source on this one for us. It's, off-duty cops collect DNA samples at Alabama roadblocks. And, of course, this was dovetailed into the story recently of the Supreme Court ruling that the cops can collect your DNA when they detain you. It doesn't even have to be arrest or probable cause or anything. But the story begins like this. Off-duty cops in 2 counties in Alabama spent the weekend collecting saliva and blood samples from drivers at roadblocks. Okay, so that right off the bat, it's kind of, whoa, there's roadblocks. You're going to pull up. They're going to forcibly take your blood and your saliva. Oh, my God. But no. According to Lieutenant Freddie Turrentine with the St. Clair County Sheriff's Department, drivers were asked to voluntarily offer samples of their saliva and blood for a study being conducted by the Pacific Institute for Research and Evaluation. The drivers were compensated for their samples. And Turrentine explained this to, this is from the dailycaller.com. So Turrentine was telling the Daily Caller, quote, "They've got big signs up that say paid volunteer survey." Okay, first of all, paid volunteer? Is that like jumbo shrimp? Is that how does this work in the South? Paid volunteer. Paid voluntary survey. That might work. Anyway, paid volunteer survey. And if they want to participate, they pull over there and they ask them questions. And if they're willing to give them a mouth swab, they give them $10. And if they're willing to give them a blood sample, they give them $50. And they don't do anything if they drive off. End quote. Okay, so let's just imagine this scenario in our minds together. You're in Alabama. You're driving down the road. There's a big roadblock ahead. There's a cop there who's waving you over to pull over. Not in a police car, but standing there at the roadblock, waving you in. And when you pull in, they say, now you're not in trouble. This is just a voluntary roadside sample. You're free to go if you want, but this is just voluntary. Well, boy, that sounds like kind of coercive, doesn't it? When it's a police officer standing there, you're standing off the side of the road, sure, you don't have to volunteer, but what's it going to look like if you refuse, right? And how do you know? He's like, yeah, sure. Maybe they're telling me they're going to, not going to do anything to me at this roadblock, but maybe the next stop down the road, there's some guy, all right, radio ahead, check for the guy in the red car, smells like pot, wouldn't take the test. Who knows if that's happening or not? But anyway, this is a story basically about this PIRE, Pacific Institute Research and Evaluation. This isn't the first time they've done this. According to Turrentine here, what they're doing is about 60 sites around the country to get a better understanding of inebriation patterns. It's basically like a roadside census. They want to find out who's out there driving with alcohol or drugs in their system. This is another quote. They're trying to get 75,000 participants with anonymous donations of blood, and they don't know whose blood or whose swab it is. And they're trying to say, okay, after this hour at night, out of these 75,000 people, 10% of them had alcohol in their blood, or 12% of them had some kind of narcotic in their blood. That is all they're doing for impaired driving, he explained. It was a voluntary thing, and they were compensated if they gave a DNA sample or a blood sample. The study group compensated them for it. If the motorist wanted to participate, they could. If they wanted to go on, they were free to do so, end quote. Okay, so I decided, me, I looked this stuff up. So I checked out how this had been implemented before. This was done in California. And this same group, out of all of their studies, they were able to come up with these scary lines like, cannabis-involved driving has increased in California since 2007. Nearly 1 in 10 weekend nighttime drivers tested positive for THC. And in some jurisdictions, like Eureka, California, the rate was nearly 1 in 5. The possible contribution of cannabis legislation, such as decriminalization and medical usage, is discussed. And of course, this is all about the idea of making it so scary that there's going to be, if we legalize marijuana, there'll be THC in people's blood, with never recognizing the fact that finding the THC is not necessarily indicative as to whether or not someone was impaired. We've got to get better science on this issue for sure.